Hey you, it's Shelby here from Little Coffee Fox, and today I want to talk to you about something that has been a little bit of a challenge for me for quite a long time. Something that's really common in the lettering and art world is wreaths. Drawing or painting wreaths, or even just other flowers and botanicals and sort of greenery in your artwork, around your lettering. It's everywhere. And it's always been really kind of hard for me because I'll sit down with the intention of creating something really cool with a wreath around it, and I draw a blank. I become overwhelmed because I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go with it. I don't know how to make it all look nice and cohesive. And this sort of overwhelm has meant that I have a lot of inspiration to do those things, but I end up not really doing them because they kind of scare me a little bit. Recently, I realized that the reason why it's so difficult for me is because I haven't built up a good inner library of florals and botanicals and wreaths and all of that stuff. So that's actually what I want to show you today. How to take those complicated patterns and beautiful wreaths and break them down into their core elements so that you can build your own internal library, so that the next time that you feel inspired to create a wreath or a floral pattern or whatever, you can do it yourself without having to worry, without having to stress, without having to even look up references if you don't want to. My first piece of advice, draw all of this out and keep it somewhere like a journal, so that way you can flip to it whenever you need to try to create something, and you can have all of the individual pieces, all of the ingredients right there on the page, written down, drawn out, ready to go, like a little encyclopedia for yourself. All right, let's just jump right into it. If we're breaking down the core elements of wreaths and leaves, then we need to look at the foundation first, which is the branch or the twig or whatever that might be. Of course, the easiest is the simple wave branch, which is exactly as simple as it sounds. It is a wavy line. After that is the simple straight, which is just simply a line. Then let's do wavy with variation. Then straight with variation. Alright, next let's tackle some of the more complex branch structures. Off of the main line, go ahead and just keep making little V's. If you're going with wavy, make sure to keep the lines a little bit wavy to stay consistent, or if you're doing straight like a tree branch, make sure to keep them rather straight, just for consistency, to make it all look like it's part of the same plant. And that's really it for branch structure. These 6 basic shapes and forms will serve as the foundation for just about every type of wreath, leaf, bough, floral, foliage, anything that you want to create. All you gotta do is pick one and then add leaves. So let's get into the leaves. The first one is pretty simple. It is a long, rounded lip what? No, it is a long, rounded tipped leaf. And just as a note for the leaves, you can add the veins of a leaf if you like, or you can keep it minimalist. It's really up to you. I'm going to go ahead and show both. This one is the short, rounded tip leaf. You can really change the entire look by simply minorly adjusting the length of the leaf itself. Now we're going to try those both again, but instead of rounded tips, we're going to have sharp tips to the leaves. Man, these are tongue twisters. The next leaf we're going to try is what I call a drop-shaped leaf, which is similar to the rounded leaves, but they have a little bit more of a curvy shape that's more like a teardrop. So again, this is just the tiniest variation of the round-tipped leaves, but it does create a completely different looking plant. This just goes to show that you really don't need to do a whole lot to completely change the look of a wreath or a bough. So you don't need to have like every leaf available out in the world memorized. You can just create your own with little tweaks, little adjustments, and you have something totally different, totally new, and very cool looking. Also, this is by no means comprehensive. This is really just to sort of get you started and kickstart your inspiration. Next, we're going to get a little bit more complicated and do a multi-point leaf. So that's just where you take something like a sharp pointed leaf and then you add a couple other sharp points and you've got a whole new leaf on your hands. Now we're going to depart from leaves a little bit and do a couple of different patterns that can add some variation to your wreaths. These are no particular flowers, they're just kind of a sort of minimalistic idea of a flower, but they can really add a lot of pizzazz to whatever you're trying to illustrate. You can have a whole branch of flowers, or if you like, you can intermix flowers onto other branches and sort of show that that particular tree is in bloom. So it's just an idea. Next, we're going to do sort of the idea of berries. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and add some branches because I think it looks a little weird, just berries on a stem. So let me draw it and let me show you what I mean. So there you go. That's really it. It's just dots. You can fill them in or they can be hollow, and it sort of gives this idea of berries or even maybe teeny tiny flowers, but it's a really interesting pattern that adds a lot of texture and zest to your wreath or your bow. Definitely something worth having in your personal library. I'm going to go ahead and end the leaves section there because there are, like I said, tons of different options, tons of varieties. This is just a very basic one to get you started. Feel free to add to it and add maybe if you have a particular affinity for maple leaves or fiddly fig leaves or any other interesting leaf shape, feel free to add it to your library and use it. This is just the very basic stuff. Moving on, I want to show you the difference between symmetrical leaf formations and asymmetrical leaf formations and how they can kind of affect the way a branch looks. So first there's the symmetrical leaf formation, which is basically just to say that you have a branch and each leaf has a twin on the other side of that branch so that they are matched up perfectly all the way up, whereas asymmetrical is where you have an offset. So you have leaf and then a little bit higher up, leaf and then leaf. I'm probably not showing it very well on this pen, so let me draw it again on the paper so you can see what I'm talking about. As you can see, asymmetrical is just the leaves are offset from each other. They're not mirroring each other on each side of the branch. It's worth thinking about symmetrical versus asymmetrical leaf formations when you're drawing these because you want to stay consistent throughout one type of plant because plants don't just grow differently halfway through a branch structure. They are very consistent in their forms and structures. So you want to make sure to just have that in mind. If you start doing one, just try to keep doing that particular style all the way through and it will look really, really sharp. Whereas if you switch it up and you don't really pay attention to it, it can look a little bit more sloppy and less intentional. Just something to think about. Okay, so we have talked about branch structures. We've talked about leaf shapes. We've talked about flowers and berries, symmetrical versus asymmetrical. Now it's time to put it all together and show you how you can assemble your own wreaths. I'm going to show you two very simple, basic wreaths that you can do with some of the elements that we've already covered. So first things first, I took a little round jar and I traced 2 circles onto my paper with pencil and then lightly erased them so I can see them, but the camera cannot. Then we are going to just take our pen and go straight in. So for the first one, I think I'm just going to do a really, really simple wreath with just one type of branch completely going all the way around and meeting itself on the other side. So let's start with just drawing a circle. And don't worry about this being a perfect circle, because who cares? It's a wreath. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's organic. It's gonna have a little bit of mistakes and a little bit of unique shapes and stuff. So don't worry about making everything just right. Just go with the flow and see what you can create freehanded. So I'm just going to start by creating the leaves. I think for this one, I'm gonna go with a long, round leaf. I'm going with symmetrical on this one. It just felt right. I don't know. Sometimes it just feels right. And I'm just following the shape of the stem. Oops, accidentally did a single asymmetrical leaf. But as long as you have a general pattern going on, most people will not notice a little mistake like that. So feel free to just keep plugging along and just keep on moving. Don't worry about it. Don't start over. Just keep on moving. Sometimes with this kind of thing, your brain can just turn off and your hands will do something unexpected. That's why I have so many misspellings in my bullet journals. And there you go. That is a completed, very simple, easy to do wreath with some of the very, very, very basic elements that you learned today. It seems so intimidating when you see it as a complete pattern, but it's really just a bunch of repetitive shapes, and you've got yourself something really cool and intricate looking that wasn't that hard to put together. Okay, let's try a new wreath with a little bit more of those elements that we learned. We're gonna go ahead and draw another circle to get our base, and then we'll start adding leaves and branches and other cool elements to build out the full wreath. Now that I've done my base, I'm gonna go ahead and start adding some branches. Again, we're keeping all of these branches kind of splitting off in the same direction. We don't want a bunch of branches going every which way, so we wanna keep it all going in one nice clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Okay, I really like that. You know, if I wanted to, I could even leave it as just naked branches and then put flowers and berries on it if I wanted something like that. You don't actually have to add leaves to make a wreath. You can have twigs and berries and flowers. It doesn't always have to be about leaves. So that's just something to think about. If you want to skip the leaf part entirely, it's up to you. But I think I'm going to go ahead and add some leaves. First, I'm going to go ahead and put leaves on all of the individual branches, and then I think I'm going to go and fill in the spaces on the main stem. Another thing to note is that you can absolutely change the sizes of the leaves, because you can have some leaves that are more mature and bigger, and some leaves that might be new sprouts, so they can be a little bit smaller. Feel free to just mix it up a little bit and do what feels right for the wreath that you are creating. You don't have to stick to any particular rules. These are all just really guidelines. All right, I am done with adding leaves to the branches. Now I'm going to go and fill in the leaves on the main stem. So all of the leaves are filled in. I think as a final touch, I'm going to go ahead and look for little opportunities to add dots and berries and stuff just around to see if I could give it just a little extra zest. There's no particular rhyme or reason with where I'm putting these berries. It's just kind of what feels right. Wherever there seems to be a space that needs to have a berry, you know? There's no rules, there's no right or wrong. This is the kind of thing that you just you do whatever looks best, feels right, and if it doesn't work, then try something different next time. It's better to have tried something and had it not work than to not try things and stay boring. I think that feels about right. Okay, so that wreath is done. As you can see, neither of these wreaths have a ton of complicated elements. They might look a little complicated, but they are just a few very basic elements that are just stitched together to create a really cool pattern. And of course, you don't need to even do this all in a wreath. You can do laurels, like around words. You can fill entire shapes with a cool floral pattern. There are limitless options with this kind of stuff. The key is really just breaking it down to its key elements and not being overwhelmed by all of the options. Pick one or two little things that you like. Feel free to add on a little bit here and there, but keep it to a very simple base and you should be perfectly fine. That's really all there is to this super simple technique. As long as you have your own personal reference library to check in with, you should have no problem coming up with excellent inspiration for gorgeous and amazing wreaths, laurels, florals, bouquets, whatever you want to do. And I just covered basic line work. You can do this with color, you can add more textures and details if you like. It's really entirely up to you. I know that with this reference library that I've made for myself, I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more of these kinds of floral elements. If you like this video, please feel free to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, check out my other videos, you know the spiel. But whatever you do, thank you for watching, and I will catch you later. I don't know. Goodbye. Bye.